Welcome to MCN and the MV Agusta F3 RR. Now, I've ridden this about 500 or 600 miles in the last week and I'm really impressed. The main reason for that is that this is an MV that works exactly like it should do, exactly like the designers penned it all the way back in 2013. So this is actually what used to be known as the F3 800. It's now just the F3 because the 675 version has gone. So MV are one of the only companies now still making supersport bikes long after they went out of fashion. Ducati obviously have got their Panigale V2, but this really is the last of the supersport screamers, and it is fantastic. As well it should be, because this bike here costs just under £20,000, which is insane, isn't it? When you think back in the old days with the R6 and the CBR, they were well under 10 grand. So it's an expensive toy, and it's even more expensive because it's got a race kit fitted. So it's got this Kropovic can, you've got a single seat unit, you've got a racing fuel cap, you've got some fancy levers, and that adds £2,000 to the price. So this is a 22 grand motorcycle. So you could say it's quite niche. So what makes this the RR? Well, there's a standard version of the F3, which is called the F3 Rosso. That's just under £15,000. And this is just about identical. It's got the same engine, the same suspension, same chassis, everything. But let's go through the individual bits that make this the RR and talk about what they do. So the most obvious change is the new aerodynamics. So no sports bike or super bike now is worth its salt without a little bit of aero. And in pictures or on this video, this aero doesn't actually look that big, but in the flesh it gives the F3 a really chunky kind of special look. So you've got these forged carbon fibre fairing lowers, and they incorporate these strakes, which are very Honda Firebladey. MV say that these produce about 8 kilos of downforce at 149 mile an hour. Needless to say, on the road they make absolutely no difference, so you're going to need to go to a track to really feel them working. But to be honest, the MV F3 never really suffered from instability problems, or is an inherently kind of wheelie bike anyway, because the 3-cylinder engine got a crank that spins backwards, and as such it forces the front wheel on the floor. So won't make a big difference on the road, but it looks cool. Also got this big wraparound Moto 2 style front mudguard, which is all about the aero, slips through the wind. It also channels air into the brake caliper and into the radiator. That looks really cool. And then you've got this big carbon fibre exhaust shroud, which smooths the airflow. Like I say, none of it makes much of a difference on the road, but what does make a difference is this taller screen. So this is good for the track, obviously. You can get your head down under the bubble more easily, but it's really nice on the motorway. You know, I don't ride many sports bikes anymore because there aren't many, and jumping on this on the motorway is a revelation in terms of how quiet it is at speed. You can be going silly motorway speeds and it is silent. You jump on something like a Tracer or a GS, the wind noise is horrendous compared to these. It really is. Over the last 10 years, I'm sure my hearing has gone downhill because of those kind of bikes. So it's really nice to have a screen like this. And talking of motorway riding, it's actually not too uncomfortable. It's got a lot of leg room. The seat's hard, but somehow it's not that uncomfortable. The bars are nice and splayed, and it's got cruise control. Quite rudimentary, it's only on or off, which can be a bit of a pain, but it does help you shake your wrists off if you get a little bit too tired. So it's a relatively comfortable bike, even though it's a super sport bike. There's a load of other bits on here that are common to the latest generation 800cc triple MVs. So let's talk about the engine first. This has got 145 bhp, 3-cylinder, sounds fantastic. It's got a lot of grunt, and the fueling now is much smoother than MVs ever used to be. They used to be inconsistent on and off the throttle. but this is as good as anything from Ducati or BMW or Triumph, who are really the kind of class leaders when it comes to fueling. So it's a really nice engine to live with, and hasn't got too much power, hasn't got too little power. It's kind of GSX-R 750 like in spirit. It's just the perfect amount of power. It's a fantastic engine, and it's got a really nice engine braking control as well, really velvety. When you come off the throttle, it's got a lot of freewheeling, not too much engine braking, but just enough, and that's adjustable as well. So the engine's great, the sound's great. Chassis wise, it's the same trellis steel chassis as it's always had, kind of Ducati 916 style, but it's got stronger cast aluminium side plates for more rigidity. Still got a single-sided swing arm. It's got a new back wheel which is slightly lighter, and the back wheel's shod with these Pirelli Diablo Rosso Corsa 2 fast road track day tyres, which are superb on the road. Can't fault them at all. And then we've got the suspension. Still got Marzocchi forks, still got a Sachs rear shock, the internals have been modified slightly, and the bike's got quite a stiff feeling. So one thing I'd say about the suspension, it does work very, very well. It does crash over B-road bumps, but on smooth tarmac it is superb. It handles so crisply. It's like a proper race prepared supersport bike. Of course, people buy these bikes because of the way they look and the way they sound. Cannot get enough of that. The induction roar is deep bellow from the induction roar. This has got a race pipe on it, which is still road legal, but it just sounds that bit fruitier. Although you have to do away with the standard stacked slash cut pipes. Another little tickle. I mean, that is worth the asking price alone. Then we've got the brakes, big chunky Brembos, work really, really well. But now MV have got the fueling sorted, the brakes are a little bit wafty. So it's really odd. It's got a really inconsistent lever travel. Sometimes it almost comes back to the bar, sometimes it's firm. Sometimes there's a bit of a notch in its travel, so if you brake lightly, you go past the notch, you feel like you've run out of brakes before you actually hit the brakes. It's really hard to set the span, and the back brake's exactly the same. So it can only be the ABS system, so that's a real shame. The F3's also got new electronics, so the ABS system I was talking about is by Continental. And it's got a new IMU, which is from Enovia from Milan. And the long and short of that is it's got cornering ABS, and apart from the weird brake feel, everything works fine. More refined traction control, slide control. To be honest, on the road, I wouldn't know if it's even switched on or off because the bike's got so much grip and it's so composed. Obviously that's something that would come in on the track or in kind of an emergency situation. The bits you do feel are the anti-wheelie. I mean, it's off now, so I can have some fun. But it is so smooth when you're full on the throttle. It pulls you back, but not too much where you feel like you're being restricted, you know, under hard acceleration in the lower gears. And obviously you've got a bit of aero to push the front down and a bit of backwards spinning crank to push the front down as well. So the bike's very calm and stable, hard on the throttle in the lower gears. You've got a new 5.5-inch colour TFT dash, which is Bluetooth compatible. Loads of functions. It's all controlled by the switchgear here. It's very, very good. Perhaps not as great as the best from, say, BMW or Ducati, but more than acceptable. And you've got a really nice new 3rd generation up and down quick shifter. So you can just slice through the gears and control that kind of orchestra of a 3-cylinder engine, which just sounds fantastic. Whether you're at high revs or low, it's just great. And the extra popping and banging from the quick shifter really just adds to the drama and the excitement of it all. So this, like I said at the beginning, is worth, not worth, it costs £20,000. So is it worth £20,000? Well, it is really, really well finished. It's got lots of electronics, lots of nice mechanical equipment. Of course, when you think back to the old days, like I said before, the 600s used to be the affordable sports bikes, and this is far from affordable. So no, it's not worth that amount of money, but you can justify spending that amount of money if you want the best of the best super sport kind of hedonism, exotica. It is a fantastic thing. But what would make it even better, especially for the price, is if it had semi-active suspension. Then you could have your cake and eat it. Then you could have a really plush ride and the control when you're going fast. So for £20,000, I'd want semi-active, and I'd probably want some Olin stickers as well. But you can't fault the way the suspension works. There are a couple of little bits which are a little bit messy. Some of the wiring is a bit exposed, and especially some exposed electrical connectors that goes into the left-hand switchgear isn't really befitting of a 20 grand bike. So overall, like I said before, the F3 RR, I think it's fantastic. It's just the purest of the pure supersport bikes, and it's so much fun to ride, and it's kind of quite practical as well. You could say it's about 15 years too late. You probably could say it's about 10 grand too expensive. But if you want that kind of ultimate sports bike thrill, you don't want something as serious as a super bike, which basically they ride you, you don't ride them. This is properly good fun. And if you've got deep enough pockets, you will not be disappointed.